we'll get into your radio career and how you got into radio in a little bit, Rae Nell, but just some background information, some bio information on you for both my purposes of putting together what I'll put together that will air on KFIZ. But for those who don't know, where did you grow up? What was life like for Rae Nell before you ever got to the radio world?
Well, I grew up on a small dairy farm in Lamira. It's easy to explain exactly where I grew up. There's two waysides on Highway 41 just south of Lamira, and I grew up right behind the one on the east side of 41. Got married, moved to east of Fond du Lac. We live on Highway 23. That's where I moved to, and I still live there today. And a little bit bigger dairy farm at the time. We've since cut way back, and my husband and I both have off the farm jobs. Happened to be standing in the right place at the right time when Farm Technology Days was in Fond du Lac County, and I was visiting with the former farm broadcaster at KFIZ, Jay Rudolph, and he had given long-term notice to KFIZ. He was going to stay through Farm Technology Days, and then he was moving on. And I said, have they found somebody to replace you? And he said, no. And I said, that's too bad, because we have a very strong agricultural community here in Fond du Lac, and I think they need a farm broadcaster. And he said, well, Rae Nell, you should take it. And he was totally quiet. And all once he went, no, really, you should take the position. And I'm like, oh, yeah, right. And the rest is basically history.
When was that? Do you remember the year that was?
July 2000.
July 2000. And Farm Tech Days, was that at the fairgrounds, or where was that?
No, it was at Able Dairy in Eden.
So what's going through your mind when he says you should do it? And it's obviously farming is very, very natural to you, having grown up on the farm, and you know all the people in that community, but radio is a whole different dynamic, right?
Yeah, it was panic a little bit, wonder if I could possibly do it and what was all involved. I had a hard time running a cassette tape player when I started, but I went in, and Jerry St. John was the station manager at the time, I think, and he said, you're hired. He said, what do you know about agriculture? I said, well, it's quite a bit. And he said, you're hired. So that was the beginning, and everybody along the road said, well, it's easier to teach radio than it is agriculture, so you're good to go. And it was a learning process, but I think I did okay.
You absolutely did, and we'll get more into your time at KFIZ and your career in a little bit. But to take a step back, what memories do you have of listening to the station growing up and prior to coming to the station, that whole time frame of your life? What memories do you have of listening to KFIZ?
Oh, mornings during milking. Farmers in those days milked in a stall barn, and your radio was your connection to the outside world. I knew all the news people at KFIZ, and we listened to Joe Gazer religiously in the morning, and they were what told us what was going on in town. Times have changed now, but in those days, that was how you made your connection to society, as you were out in the country.
And then
once your news and your news and your weather and your sports, everything came off of the radio just about in those days. When you were out in the barn, that was your information.
And then fast forward, you're now the agribusiness director. I think that was the official fancy title that they gave you. And what are some of your fond memories of being the agribusiness director for KFIZ? Just places you got to go, people you were able to interview, and how you were able to bring all that back on the air into the community.
Well, my goal was to expand the broadcasting to not just corn and soybean prices, but everything that connected to the agricultural industry. Your food at that time in 2000 was just when that was all opening up, that if you eat, you you farm, because that's the two are connected together. And that was just when that was beginning. So I felt that I hoped that I was instrumental in opening that up to people. And I had an opportunity to talk about my favorite subject, of course, with the 4-H and FFA kids. They were great. I met so many wonderful kids. My closest friends are some of the ag teachers in this community. The people probably was the greatest benefit that I met. And I could go down the list of all the young people that I met along the way. Sean and Wade Bates and Chuck Freeman, as irritating as he was to me most of the time. And now Spencer and Braden and Justin Hall. I mean, I could just keep going. Joe Truesdale, all just go down the list. I mean, those were all the young guys that helped me learn how to do my radio, the technological portion of my radio job. And I just had to keep talking about agriculture. Truthfully, I learned a lot about agriculture too. My focus at first was I knew a lot about dairy, but there's just so much more to it. There's the crops and the biofuels and carbon credits, and I mean, the list is on and on. A lot of society rotates around the agricultural industry, and people don't really realize that.
And you were certainly instrumental in helping the station have a very prominent position at breakfast on the farm, certainly in Fond du Lac County. So what are some of your memories of certainly broadcasting there and getting us to, as station personalities, to volunteer? I know it was some of the most fun I ever had.
Well, yeah, and I think it's important. It's important for the radio station to be for the on-air people to be out among the community. And of course, the breakfast on the farm is a very, very large portion of that. County fair is another thing that they were broadcasting for 15 minutes or a little while from the market livestock sale. But in the heyday, I did a 2-hour broadcast from out there. Now we do an hour. We're still doing an hour broadcast. And they call me in spring to make sure I'm doing the broadcast from the market livestock sale. I mean, it's important to people. I mean, it's a great way to show people that there are a lot of wonderful youth in this community. The same with the agriculture in general. You know, agriculture was not at one point considered a business, and it is absolutely positively a business. I mean, you have to cash flow, you have to make money. It's not, we can't continue to give our product away. We have to actually make some money on it. So, and those are all things that I, hopefully from my personal experience, that I was able to portray to people.
And the station had a great partnership with the UW Extension. Let's talk a little bit about those, because we'll take a step back first. We'll get to the UW Extension in a bit, but you know, you're doing these interviews, and then the time of day that these are airing. So you had a couple of different time slots that you were responsible for creating content for. What were all those time slots throughout the day that you were helping fill?
From 5 in the morning until 6 in the morning. That was cut down to about 40 minutes for a while, but then it went back to an hour again. And then we were on from 12 to 1 for quite a while. And then that was cut down to 12:30 to 1, I believe. And then I had an afternoon report after the markets closed. Sean, you did that for me for many, many years. If I was gone someplace, which I was gone a lot, traveling and just getting to meet people and getting interviews. So yeah, and I had a market closing, a report late in the afternoon, and I had that was 6 days a week. I did that from 5 to 6. And then Sunday mornings, I had my inspirational thought for the week.
I vividly recall reading corn prices and the pork bellies.
When you left and Justin Hull came, and then he went down to Iowa, I think, or Missouri from KFIZ for a while, and he called me, he goes, guess what? They were really impressed. I knew how to read the commodity markets. I said, see, I bet you never thought you'd ever use that again.
And as part of that 5 a.m. program, we would have Monday through Friday a live visit, 10 to 15 minutes, the UW extension I mentioned before. Just talk about that relationship and Irv Poseen and Mike Rankin.
It didn't, but prior to them was the late Barney Madigan, and he actually just passed away about 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago. He was on there. It was called Barney on the Farm, and it was a big deal. And then we switched over. Well, that was when can't think of the guy's name. That was farm broadcaster before Jay Rudolph. Anyway, he was on for a long time. It was Barney on the Farm, and then it went to Irv Poseen and Mike Rankin, and they did their every other mornings, and did a great job, made a wonderful connection with people. They did a great job of making people aware that extension was even there. That people used them, would call there for houseplant questions and garden questions. And at the time, there was a horticulturist at the extension office. So they were able to pass those calls on. It was a great connection for them to the community.
And what about some memories, just interviewing and developing relationships with the various Allison Dairylands over the many years that you have been on the air?
They are wonderful young women, and yes, I did get to be very good friends with many of them. Gina Cooper's mother and I are still very, very close friends, and I was given the Friend of the Alice Award from Nicole. I think her name is from Sheboygan, but I was given the Friend of Alice Award one year. They were great. I just felt that at the time the program was maybe a little underrated, and they were just starting to blossom at that time, that they were starting to get them to do food demonstrations and cooking demonstrations, and hope that some of the things that I did with them helped that process along. And they still are wonderful young women that do an excellent job of talking about agriculture, and whatever the platform, you use it to the best of your ability. And that is definitely a very, very beneficial platform for the agricultural community.
And we even pulled you off of the agricultural platform. You got the opportunity to team up with Jerry St. John and broadcast the holiday parade, which obviously always a huge hit right after Thanksgiving. What memories do you have of sitting there on the trailer bed and talking with Jerry and describing all the different floats?
Oh, that was fun. It was a lot of fun. The one funny memory I have is there were some miniature horses in the parade, and Jerry thought that they were baby horses, not miniature horses. I said, no, Jerry, those don't get any bigger than that, but it's okay. I wouldn't expect you to know that. I think he took a little grief from that. But no, he's a great sidekick. He's great to work with. He's a great guy to work with. He's very informed, very professional. I do remember freezing one year. We were standing up there, and it started to just mist when the parade was going to start. Oh my gosh. And by the time the parade was over, we had like a 3/4 inch crust of snow and ice over our entire bodies. And I rode back to the radio station with him. And I remember when I climbed in his car, I went crack, crack. But it was fun. One year it was very, very cold, very, very cold. And we were done, and my husband happened to be standing there, and I heard him say to my daughter, "Go warm up the truck," because I think he knew I was pretty cold. But no, it was a great experience, great memories. People, and I'd have a lot of people talk about it afterwards. Like, they'd turn it on at nursing homes in Fond du Lac, and it was just a visual thing for people that couldn't come to the parade, that they actually could be in on some of the excitement.
And so, apologies for my ignorance. Are you still doing anything for radio? Where is that at? If you're not, when did you When did you end up finally, I guess, signing off?
I have not. I still do a 4-H and FFA on the air program on Saturday mornings at 6:20. Keeps me in contact with the youth. And then I broadcast from the market livestock sale at the county fair, and how about different places. Oh, I broadcast from the egg showcase in March at the fairgrounds to get people up and going and letting them know that they're out there that day. So yeah, I still do a little radio. It's like something, you know, it's kind of like agriculture. It doesn't ever really go away.
Final thoughts, KFIZ, 100 years, what a legacy.
It is a legacy, and I'm not sure that Fond du Lac totally appreciates it, although I still have people recognize me from my full-time radio days. It is. I did not realize how many people were informed about radio until you'd call people and say, "This is Rae Nell Halbur from KFIZ Radio in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin," and they'd go, "Yeah, right," because they actually understood that Fond du Lac, Wisconsin was on the wrong side of the Mississippi to be a K. And I don't think people totally understand that's very, very unique, that there is only one other radio station like that. Yeah, it was a wonderful job. I met great people. I rubbed elbows with Leroy Butler and Bart Starr and Donald Driver and Rulon Gardner. I'm, Olympic gold medalist, professional football players. William Henderson. I think that was the one I was most impressed with. But yeah, I got to rub shoulders with people I never ever would have thought. A lot of great young people, because KFIZ is small. A lot of radio people started KFIZ, so there were a lot of young guys came in and out, and they were just like another friend and another son, really. And yeah, a great tradition in Fond du Lac. It gives Fond du Lac some notoriety. I think and I think that they should continue to support it. And well, we're moving back home again now, so I think that's an exciting thing. And we'll be back on Main Street, and it's a highlight for people are going to be able to stop, and it's going to be fun.